¿A dónde está papi? Welcome to the Monday stream. I hope everyone's having an awesome Monday. Welcome, everybody. Michael Hassler. Heat, how's it going? Welcome, everybody. Sorry about that, folks. Let me make sure. Oh, look at that. I got my titles all wrong. Hold on, folks. All right. Mouselander, welcome. There you go. No problem here. I just got back from the store. Sorry, no, I just messed up on the YouTube title. I didn't edit both of them. I only edited one channel. Sorry about that, folks. Let me just get ready here. All right, folks. So we have a limited time. Lots to talk about. Today has been such a tiring day. I'm already exhausted, folks. I'm done. I am done. A couple of things before we get started. Of course, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please like the stream. Please share the stream. Spread the word far and wide. You know, do the things, right? Join the Discord. Join the Discord by doing exclamation Discord. And you get to hang out in a awesome, cool, nifty little space. And on top of that, you get updates on the stream channel. If, let's say, I'm not doing a stream that day, I'll post it on the Discord. It is more likely that I post channel updates on Discord than it is on Twitter. Okay? And as a final pitch, see if that didn't get you interested in the Discord. Every last Saturday of the month, there is a movie night, completely free. You get to vote on the type of category of movies that you all want to watch, and we would just watch a movie that kind of fits that. So there you go. I'm done too. I completely hear that. I hear that. That's right, movie night. If you want to support the channel and you want to do so while wearing some cool swag, I think that's what the kids call it. Check out exclamation merch. There's a merch store, believe it or not. Believe it or not. All right, now that we got that all out of the way, let me go ahead and get all this started. I have a mug that's awesome. Actually, the mug is one of my favorite things. I'm not gonna lie. The mug is one of my favorite things. And I only own 2 mugs. Thank you for the follow. Although I'm gonna be honest, I'm kind of sad that I can't display it as much. Because I have my I have my mug on display as part of like the little background, but unfortunately the way the camera is set up, it's not really picking up part of the background here. There's a couple of things back here. So I might just go back and either rework the camera angle, but then also it's kind of hard. But or I'll just go back to using it because it's a coffee mug and it's a nice coffee mug. Anyways, speaking of which, now that reminds me, I gotta go grab my seltzer water. Okay, hold on, give me 1 second, folks. Seltzer water is incredibly important. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. Seltzer water is perfect for when you want like a little bit of like kind of like a soda, but you don't want to drink a soda. Not seltzer water, sparkling water. I'm sorry. Close enough. All right, let's get started, folks.
They'll change the name. They're going to change the name of Pennsylvania.
Oh God, it's time. It's time to check in on Donald Trump. It's been a while since I've done this.
True, you know. If the Democrats win, they're going to change the name of the state of Pennsylvania.
It's important to not get too used to how crazy Trump is. So on Friday, he spoke to the NRA and made some very interesting comments that are important for policy reasons. And then today he spoke at a rally in South Carolina for a Get Out the Vote rally, which also came with some bizarre comments. So before I get to all that, first I want to share one of my favorite Trump quotes of all time.
1 and 0 and 2.
1 and 0 and 2. I am sharing this.
Phenomenal.
Because I've turned this into a t-shirt. Now, as you know or don't know, I do not do sponsorships. So I just feel like it's weird being like, hey, buy this product that cleans your ass or buy this one.
Hey, whoa. Hey, whoa, Mr. Dole. Man, Mr. Dole taking pot shots at the Majority Report. Jesus Christ. Listen, I've done a couple of sponsorships when I've done a couple of sponsorships, but I've only done the sponsorships on products that I've actually used, like HelloFresh. Okay, I actually, we've used it for years. You know, we pause our memberships to HelloFresh here and there, but we've used it for a good number of years. So that's a sponsorship I'm comfortable in taking. Okay. But yeah, that comment was a bit of a pot shot at the Majority Report, okay?
And that gives you a new razor every 2 weeks or something. So instead...
Whoa, also a pot shot at the Majority Report. Jesus Christ. I have mixed feelings about HelloFresh. Honestly, they're not that bad. I will say, like, the biggest issue that we've had, and I think I've even mentioned this, I think like the biggest issue is their veggies. Is like their veggies. I mean, like, you know, they're pretty good if you like hassle them on like customer service. They're pretty good about like giving you perks or giving you something like that if your stuff doesn't come out right, but yeah. That's right, Michael Hassler. And also, like, at the time, it was a huge benefit since we weren't going out as much outside. It's not the worst thing in the world, you know?
You can support me by buying merch. The 1 and 0 and 2 t-shirt is right here. And there's other stuff as well on the merch store, including mugs and shirts,
That's
as well
pretty
as
cool.
you see in the Pride logo. There's also the normal logo in there as well. And if you're so inclined, if you care for Degrassi, 80s Degrassi, Canadian Degrassi, here's a wheel shirt right here. This is, I do an occasional podcast with my buddy Miles, and that's where this comes from. But so this is the rationalnational.com/merch. Link is below the video in the description box on YouTube, but it's also very easy to get to, therationalnational.com/merch. Help support the show. There is a lot of fun stuff here. There you go. All right, let's get to these rallies. I'm going to start with the ones
Degrassi.
because the NRA want to.
The best Degrassi. I'll be honest, I watched Degrassi. Okay, listen. When I used to have the ability to watch TV, cable TV, I think I may have caught the era of Degrassi, where Drake, where Drake was in it. I just never never caught the appeal, or it never I don't know, it just never captivated me. A political streamer not talking about Vaush, an insane moment. Yeah, I'm not even gonna I'm not even gonna go there, I'm gonna be honest. I don't even know what a Degrassi is. It's like some kind of, it's not a reality show. It's like is it a sitcom? No, it can't be. It's not a sitcom either. I don't think it is. I don't even know what to categorize it. It's just like I don't know. Michael Hathler, help me out here. What would you categorize it as? Again, this is from my limited knowledge. The appeal is kids our age talking adult stuff. Like a teen drama. Okay. Yeah, alright. There you go. Like a teen soap. I mean, it was definitely under the category of drama.
I think is a little more important. This one is just bizarre. Of course, we're going to start for some reason with a prayer.
God, we believe that you have chosen Donald Trump as an instrument in your hands for this purpose. Your word says that you hate dishonest scales. So, Father, we are asking you for election integrity.
Who's gonna tell them? Okay. Who's gonna tell them? Hey, real quick, who's currently facing criminal charges for trying to steal the election? Remind me real quick, who's currently facing criminal charges? What woke Jesus did. Are we gonna need a new bracelet instead of like the WWJD? And it's like WWWJD. What would woke Jesus do? Fake news.
There was a lot more to that, but I could not subject you to the entire prayer. Asking the Lord for election integrity for the president that tried to steal an election. But to be fair, Donald Trump loves the Bible. He really loves the Bible. So much that he gave this incredible answer during the 2016 election.
I'm wondering what one or two of your most favored...
I know this one. I know. This one's a phenomenal clip. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. Welcome.
Bible verses are and why.
I wouldn't want to get into it because to me that's very personal. You know, when I talk about the Bible, it's very personal. So I don't want to get into verses. I don't want to get into.
There's no verse that means a lot to you that you think about or cite.
The Bible means a lot to me, but I don't want to get into specifics.
Even to cite a verse that you like.
No, I don't want to do that.
You're an Old Testament guy or a New Testament?
Oh my God! Like, man, like you can, like, how can you not just like pull, like, even if you were like, even if you didn't care, which clearly Donald Trump doesn't. Man, how sad is that? Like, just pull a verse out of your just pull a verse out of thin air, man. It's not that hard, you know. Especially if you claim to want that evangelical vote, just keep a verse in there in your pocket. And all you got to do to sell the grift to say that that it means a lot to you, and it's you know, whatever. He's a Young Testament guy. The biblical Jesus kind of woke. True. At least say John 3:16. It's kind of a meme long enough that everyone knows 3:16. True, and it's like, it's completely sellable because it's like one of the most popular Bible verses.
Probably equal. I think it's just an incredible. The whole Bible is an incredible. I joke very much so. They always hold up The Art of the Deal. I say my second favorite book of all time. But I just think the Bible is just something very special.
Okay. You mentioned...
Man. Bro didn't even have to explain anything. Just 3:16. You know, it means a lot to me, and it's changed my whatever. But yeah, well,
I'm still annoyed at these two idiots interviewing him that didn't think to maybe continue pressing on this when they knew it was very clear they were speaking to a bullshit artist. Just, it's just amazing. It's just amazing. Let me get to, this is a quick one, but it kind of tells us a lot.
They'll put it in, oh, did he say state? They don't have the correction. I never correct because I hate to admit I'm wrong.
I always find it amusing, the random things that Trump puts out there that if anyone else, any other politician had said, it would be big news. I never like to correct because I hate to admit that I'm wrong. Imagine Joe Biden said that.
yeah. Also, it kind of gives you like an insight as to like this whole like election denialism stuff, because like, you know, he's admitted that he actually doesn't believe that he doesn't believe this whole like election denialism into a certain degree. Like, he knows that the vote count is legit. He knows this, but he refuses to correct himself, and this kind of I think this is a perfect example as to the mindset that's being used here.
Imagine basically any other politician on the national level said that. That you're admitting you lie. You're admitting that you lie all the time.
He just says it like it is.
And this is not going to make any headlines. No one's going to pay attention. This is one of many ridiculous comments throughout this entire rally. But this is why it's important occasionally to check in on what Trump is doing and saying, because we need to continue to recenter ourselves and understand that this man is not normal. Do not get used to this. It's very easy to become complacent, to just...
Oh, man, wait till the grand finale on this story.
You know,
Not the video, but I'm talking about like our grand finale.
Because he's a completely insane individual, it's easy for everything to just kind of wash away, and we forget about, honestly, most of it. I know I do, because there is so much bullshit that he puts out there. It's hard to keep track of it all in your mind because there's too much of it. But that's why it's important to revisit some of this and or check in occasionally and understand that this guy cannot be in any kind of position of power ever again. He's completely insane.
Yeah, and also like this kind of goes to the severity of like, or the gravity of the situation, and how Democrats are putting in an unnecessary. It is putting the country in an unnecessary position when it doesn't need to be this way. Like there's no it's embarrassing that the presumed Democratic nominee is effectively tied, or it's a coin flip, and unfortunately each time the numbers they're not looking better to this guy. That's where we're at. Hambles, how's it going?
Let me get to this. So these clips now are from, I got a few from the NRA.
Hi everyone, Mark Barden here at Sandy Hook Promise. On December 14th, 2012.
Speaking here to the NRA, this tells us a lot about, his 4 years as president and how he would continue if he became president again.
During my 4 years, nothing happened, and there was great pressure on me having to do with guns. We did nothing. We didn't yield. And once you yield a little bit, that's just the beginning.
Didn't Trump pass the most like restrictions on firearms? I'm pretty sure he did. These are bots? Oh, that's unfortunate. I mean, their account name should have probably given it away. You're right.
The avalanche begins.
It's important to understand that Trump is not only completely insane. When it comes to policy, when it comes to foreign policy, domestic policy, he simply does not care about people. Think of the amount of massacres that occurred under Donald Trump. Nothing was done. Nothing was even attempted. And he will continue to be that way if he is in power again. And you could argue
it really doesn't matter anymore. What, like the firearm restrictions? I'm sorry. Maybe I didn't catch that.
Nothing much is getting done now, and I would agree with you. Nothing much is, but it's not because of Democrats. Democrats, to be fair, on this issue, and look, you see my videos, I criticize Democrats quite a bit. They clearly want to accomplish a lot more here and continue to be blocked by Republicans either in the House or in the Senate, depending.
They're gonna take your guns, all of them,
on what the situation is. And with the President Trump, for a fact nothing will get done. And he also went on to say in this speech that he would roll back the Biden administration's zero tolerance policy that revokes federal licenses from firearm dealers that violate laws. And he said he would undo regulations on braces or stabilization devices that have also been used in massacres. Let me get to the next clip.
Oh, the thing about if Trump made gun restrictions or not? True. Gotcha, I see.
I cooperated with the very unfriendly and hostile feds. I cooperated far more than Biden did, who set records to Chinatown.
I gotta cut out the last part of that clip. Sent records to Chinatown, and that's going to be a sound on the soundboard because that's too good. This is just, again, complete bullshit.
Yeah, it didn't happen. That literally didn't happen. Also, wasn't it Trump the one who is not cooperating with the investigation in terms of the documents? Like, this is just nonsense. Projection.
Obviously, the charges against Trump only happened because they were trying for years to get the documents back. The charges are a culmination of the federal government's multi-year efforts to retrieve the documents from his private residence. They tried year after year to get the documents back. They were trying their hardest to ensure that they would, protect Trump in any way. Again, anyone else in this position, any other government employee, they would not be given this sort of grace. Trump was for years. They had to finally be like, all right, this is enough. We need these goddamn documents back. Meanwhile, Joe Biden apparently forgot about some documents in his garage, and when asked for them, they got them back right away. So there wasn't like, this multi-year fight to get documents back. Again, an obvious lie, but as I showed you earlier, he doesn't like to correct himself. And not even just that, he just outright lies all the time, knowing he's lying. And this is another obvious one. But again, this is, you may think, oh, what's the big deal? And the only reason you're thinking that is because you are so used to Donald Trump lying all the time. It is a big deal to lie all the fucking time. This is just one of many. Let me get to the last clip here. This is just funny. So we're going to end on a happy note, I guess.
Happy note?
We have to win in November, or we're not going to have Pennsylvania. They'll change the name. They're going to change the name of Pennsylvania.
Why?
True. Listen, if Trump loses, okay, the first thing that if Trump loses, the first thing that needs to happen is that Pennsylvania is no longer going to be called Pennsylvania. Okay, first thing on the docket.
Why are they going to change the name of Pennsylvania? What does that mean? What are you talking about? Why are they going to change the name of Pennsylvania if you lose Pennsylvania? What? This is part of, let's end on part of why Trump is appealing, because he's so ridiculous. This is just, what are you talking about? It's so stupid. It's so random, but it's amusing. I am laughing and I hate him. It's amusing. So yeah. But don't let this distract you from the fact that Trump is a terrible human being in so many ways. These rallies are just
don't let the fact that he is threatening. He's basically saying that the opposition. I assume he means like the Democrats are threatening to change the name of Pennsylvania or something. I don't know.
Really
that he's don't let that distract you from the fact that he's a humongous POS and presents a very legitimate threat.
Noting how insane he is. But man, I'm just saying, don't lose sight. I've done a lot, of recent criticisms of Joe Biden for obvious reasons right now, especially with his support of a far right-wing Israeli government. But just there is a place in case you don't know, there is a settlement in Israel called Trump Heights. They named it after him because of the amount of support and work he did for the far right-wing Israeli government and Benjamin Netanyahu. So if you think Trump would have, things would be better right now under Trump, no, they'd be worse. It's important to just contextualize this whole situation as we continue to lead up to a very important general election in November.
So, with that, let's take a quick look at a very rare Nate Silver W. They named it after him, to honor him, I'm sure. Yeah. Someone told him a joke and he missed a punchline. Right, Nate Silver, the man known for known for always being wrong. Except this time, it's incredibly. I mean, like, this is the type of situation where you think, like, man, maybe the world is ending. Because he is actually correct. Nate Silver is actually correct, and it kind of encapsulates the criticisms of the Democratic Party, especially the way, from my perspective, the way I see it. And Nate Silver, Transylvania. What does that mean? Can you expand on that? You don't demonstrate your seriousness that Trump is an existential threat to democracy by going through the motions to renominate an 81-year-old with a 38% approval rating, who 75% of voters think is too old, without giving anyone a choice, because that's just how things are done. Yeah, again, like, even with, like, oh, you know, the media is the one that's, you know, putting this in everybody's faces, and then the polls are reflecting the way people are reacting. Reacting to this, and it's kind of like a feedback loop. It doesn't matter. The point being is that this is how voters feel, and you're gonna have to address this. Was the renaming of Pennsylvania thing a transphobic reference? Oh, is that what they're talking about? Is that what they mean? I don't know. That's a very good question. Because it just seemed like out of nowhere. It seemed completely random to say that, like, oh, you know, if we lose, they're gonna rename Pennsylvania. First of all, to what? Second of all, who's saying this? Oh, you're saying it is a transphobic reference. Ah. Well, I didn't know that, but now it makes sense. Because from the way David Dole was presenting it, it just seemed kind of random. Out of nowhere. Transphobes are famous for having a pathetic sense of humor. Yeah, I mean, now I guess, but, like, what's the joke here? In any case, yeah, the way Dole was presenting it is, I thought it was like something out of complete left field, but, you know, whatever. Makes a little more sense now from that perspective. You don't demonstrate your seriousness that Trump is an existential threat to democracy by going through the motions to renominate an 81-year-old with 38% approval rating, who 75% of voters think is too old, without giving anyone a choice, because that's just how things are done. Again, I'd like to remind everyone that Biden was supposed to be literally a one-term president. Like, not... he literally said that himself. To which... this person decided to respond, but who made that choice? The voters did. And which, again, you know, Nate Silver, again, completely correct on this, saying, no, the Democratic Party elites, or the higher echelon, the people who make decisions at the Democratic Party level, said, you know, they willed it, and so it is. And Biden never got a serious challenger. Nate Silver is 100% correct here. Yeah, I don't know, Hambliss. I don't know. I'd have to actually go back and watch the entire Trump speech, which I don't feel like doing. And we're gonna probably have to reference this tweet later on today, so I'll just save this here.
Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis decided to deliver what can only be described as an epic clapback to the Republicans accusing her of having an improper relationship with one of her fellow prosecutors, a relationship that, as of about a week ago, Fani Willis now freely admits to. The other prosecutor, of course, is Nathan Wade, and in her over 100-page court filing this past week, Fani Willis pointed out two facts. First of all, obviously, this relationship with this guy has no bearing on the case at all. A grand jury is the that's the group that actually said yes, charged Donald Trump with these that our relationship has nothing to do with any of the facts of the case. So I don't know why everybody's making a big deal of it. Secondly, she pointed out, by the way, court, if my relationship with this guy is improper, let's talk about all of the relationships with the co-defendants' lawyers. Let me read you this from Fani Willis's filing. Personal relationships among lawyers.
Yeah, also, like, just, this reeks of desperation, because, like, if you don't have an apt defense, like an actual, like, defense, then the usual go-to when it comes to attorneys, the usual play is to attack the process, right? Oh, well, there's an improper, a conflict of interest in the prosecutors, and therefore the case is nonsense or whatever. Never actually focusing on whatever whatever evidence may exonerate you on. You can't focus on that. You can't focus on the counter arguments for the charges that are being brought against you. You start attacking literally anything else. The process. You start attacking, like, the prosecutor, like anything but addressing the actual charges against you.
Even on opposing sides of litigation, do not constitute impermissible conflicts of interest. It is worth noting that there are at least two personal relationships among the collection of defense attorneys representing the defendants that, under the standard urged by the Romans motion, would almost certainly require disqualification. She's, of course, referring to Michael Roman, who is the co-defendant, former Trump staffer, who actually filed the initial complaint alleging that Willis should be removed for having the relationship. That's where all this started. So she added, Amanda Clark Palmer, counsel representing defendant Ray Smith, and Scott Grubman, representing defendant Kenneth Chesbro, are publicly known to be in a personal relationship. Since defendant Chesbro has pled guilty and agreed to testify for the state in the upcoming trial against defendant Smith and the other remaining defendants, one who was ill-informed about the standard for attorney disqualification in Georgia might argue that the personal relationship between Clark Palmer and Grubman could rise to the level of a conflict given potential testimony by Grubman's client inculpating Clark Palmer's client. That, of course, would be an incorrect conclusion to draw. Similarly, counsel for defendant Jenna Ellis are married law partners, working together and representing defendant Ellis throughout these proceedings.
And, like, also, even if that was the case, that they somehow, like, removed Fani Willis and replaced her with a different prosecutor, what is going to be the outcome, like, of this, other than you're just going to get prosecuted by somebody else? That's not going to change the merits of the case. Like, the case is still going to go on, even if you manage to get rid of the prosecutor on some, grounds of conflict of interest. They'll just put in another prosecutor. And how is that bearing, or how does that affect the merits of the case? It doesn't.
I love the way she phrased that. Like, honestly, if she were holding a mic at this point, that's when you drop it. Because you just nailed him. Like, you just absolutely destroyed everything that Roman said in his initial complaint against you. You're like, oh, it's a problem that we're actually on the same team and doing this? Well, let me point out that the two people, one representing somebody who pled guilty and is going to testify, they're having a relationship with somebody who this guy is testifying against. So if this is improper, then holy hell, that's got to be improper. Because if those lawyers are having a relationship with somebody, you know, representing people, one who's going to flip on the other, do you not think that that would be improper? But it's not, she says. They can do that. Now, honestly, like, I kind of think maybe no. That actually seems like a very big conflict of interest. One lawyer representing the guy who's going to flip on the other lawyer's client while those two are having a relationship. That actually does definitely seem like a massive conflict of interest, but it is what it is. If you're going to try to disqualify Willis over this relationship, then you're going to have to disqualify so many other lawyers on the other side.
Yeah, and again, even if they did, you're not like, you know, it's not like it's going to affect the merits of the case. He just wants to delay until the election. Hey, Bipedal Meatbag. Yeah, I mean, that's the name of the game, right? When you got nothing, you start attacking the process. It's a desperation move.
Because theirs is actually way worse. So Willis got a good one in on Roman and all of these Republican attacks that she has suffered. Now, of course, that's not the end of it. You know, we do still have accusations that she demoted a so-called whistleblower who said, hey, one of your staffers is misusing federal funds. That's what Jim Jordan recently subpoenaed her about, in an attempt, of course, to further humiliate her. We'll see what happens with that. If she did, in fact, demote a whistleblower, then that's a very serious issue. But based on what we've seen so far, all of these allegations from Republicans have either been completely debunked or shown to be 100% overblown. So we'll wait and see.
Yeah, and again, even if that's the case, so what? You remove her and another prosecutor takes over. Case goes on.
But right now, Willis is starting to look a little bit better.
Well, that's just a quick update as to what's happening on the Georgia case. Yeah, I don't even know if we're going to get a resolution to any of these cases before the election. Like Bipedal Meatbag pointed out, I think I think the name of the game is to try to delay, and then roll the dice and see if he wins the election, if he can somehow manage to skirt accountability. Yeah. Near, far, wherever you are, I believe that the case does go on. Correct.
Say you while you say you have seen some results from the quote-unquote pressure that you have applied, they're not enough, and that the situation is still not good and not and not acceptable to you. Is that a fair assessment of what you said?
I will say, I think that sometimes people pretend that the United States of America has a magic wand that it can wave to make any situation in the world roll out in exactly the way that we would want it to, and that is never the case.
That's a straw man. That's a complete that's a complete fallacy. Okay? Nobody's asking to wave like a magic wand and to snap your fingers and things go magically right. But there are things that you can do, and there are things that you know you can do, and you refuse to do it. Okay? So, please, okay, don't insult people's intelligence, okay? Yeah. The world is black and white. True. This is actually disgusting. To have this administration look people in the eye and say, like, well, what do you want us to do, man? Just wave a magic wand or something? No, man. But there are things that you can do. Okay? And it may be the case that you do all of these things and the outcome remains the same. It is quite possible that the United States, theoretically, in a hypothetical scenario, could, cut off aid, no more weapons, bring all forces that are currently protecting Israel, bring those carrier groups back. It's theoretically, hypothetically, like the United States can do all of that and Israel continues, right? It's quite possible. But that doesn't mean that you just go like this, right? You're actively participating in this. You're actively being responsible for what's happening, okay? Right, they could just stop doing the things that they're doing now, and it would be something, okay? Biden could literally tell Netanyahu, hey man, you need to cut the shit. And if you don't, then we'll make a public announcement. You got 24 hours starting now. We're taking our ball and going home. And that's it. Hey, listen, if the United States took active efforts to try to do the things that it could do, it'd be one thing, okay? But we're not. Oh, wow, dude. Cool, man. Hey, listen, one day I wish to have the political analysis that you have, okay? Wow, phenomenal. One day I would love to have your political acumen, okay? One day, man. One day.
Okay,
We use the tools that are available.
There are other people.
We use the tools that are available to try to influence policy. They are imperfect, and there are ways, and there are.
But you're not using the tools that you have available. Because if you did, there would be way more pressure. In fact, you're just actively signing off on this shit. Okay? And also, you can't in one freaking breath, like, this is what's so infuriating. In one freaking breath, you're telling the American people that there's just nothing you can do. There's no magic wand you could wave to make stuff right. And then in the other breath, say you have tools at your disposal. So which one is it? So which one is it? Get these 12-year-olds off this platform. Yeah, phenomenal analysis by our very, like, I am in shambles, okay, at the intellectual titan that just came through our chat, okay? 3 geese in a trench coat. These guys should all have war crime trials, 100%. In a just world, yes, that's what would be happening. In a just world, we would be watching trials for all of these people. All of them. And what's so infuriating is that the insult to people's intelligence, how you can in one breath say that you don't have a magic wand to do stuff, and then turn around and say literally within 44 seconds of this statement, okay, within 44 seconds you say that you can't do anything, you don't have a magic wand, and also you have tools at your disposal. So which one freaking is it? It sounds to me like maybe you're not using said tools.
Ways in which we have been able to show tangible results and more that we want to do, and that is why we continue to stay engaged.
But there are others who would say that you have a multitude of billions of things that you could use to...
Yeah, a multitude of billions, i.e. the funding that we are trying to shove through.
I'm aware.
Yeah, exactly. So, and you haven't used those.
As always, when we look at all of the tools in our...
Bro, are you serious right now? Yeah, don't be cute. There's like literally, what, 27,000 civilians are dead? This dude is pissing me off 100%. Not to mention the incident that happened during the freaking Super Bowl, okay? We'll get to that in a second.
At our disposal, we have to look at the upsides of using them, and we have to look at the downsides.
Yeah, the downsides is that you would be at least trying to make an effort when 27,000 people have died. Yeah, the Puppy Bowl. I haven't even watched it yet, whatever happened in Rafah. So, like, this is just kind of to set the stage, because, like, this clown is literally getting up on TV to the press and saying this shit. And, like, during the Super Bowl, the Israeli government said, okay, first of all, the Israeli government made an announcement telling people to go to, like, literally the last place, okay? You're talking about 1.4 million people, down to like the most southern part of the Gaza Strip, and they bombed it, okay? And they freaking bombed it, okay? I woke up to freaking images of this one girl being completely, for lack of a better way of describing it, the best way I can describe it is this woman was torn up, okay? In a very gruesome way, because of the attack that happened, and the excuse is because they saved 2 hostages. Okay, you can go and look at the pictures if you want. That's what I woke up to. And we have smug pieces of shit like this trying to gaslight people, trying to insult people's intelligence in front of the press. Unfreaking believable. Whenever the grandiose language is trotted out, you know the bullshit fire hose is being prepped. Yep. They've known, they now saved as many hostages as they've shot while waving white flags. Yeah, true. Actually, yep. And, yeah, Ken Klippenstein, pointed this out. In one breath, This is absurd. In one breath saying that, like, oh, some people like to pretend that the U.S. Has like a magic wand shit, and then they're like, oh well, you kind of do. I mean, you can't guarantee the outcome of everything, but Jesus Christ, you have a multitude of billions of things that you could use. Like, oh yeah, we're aware, bro. Are you serious? The Senate voted for the third time in the past week to advance funding for Ukraine and Israel despite strong opposition from conservative Republicans who balked at the package, not including a House-passed bill to tighten the southern border and question the end game for the war in Ukraine. So it turns out that Democrats can actually force an issue when they want to. It's funny how that works, isn't it? It's funny how that works, right? Hey, what is the Democratic majority in the Senate? Maybe like 1 or 2? I keep saying it, corporations are people and humans are a liability. Ain't that the truth? The Senate voted 67 to 27 on Sunday to move the $95.3 billion another step toward final passage, assembling the chamber shortly before the Super Bowl kickoff. Man, bread and circus, huh? Talk about bread and circus. The package includes $60 billion for Ukraine, $14 billion in security assistance for Israel, $9 billion in humanitarian assistance in Gaza, the West Bank, and Ukraine, and $4.8 billion to supply allies in the Indo-Pacific. It was stripped of the border provision last week after conservatives objected to a bipartisan border bill. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer remarked on the rare occasion of voting on the Super Bowl Sunday, but reminded colleagues of the high stakes in the moment. As we speak, Putin's invasion of Ukraine has rendered parts of Eastern Europe a war zone, the likes we should have not seen in those regions since the Second World War. Ukraine is dangerously low on supplies, including ammo and air defense. If America doesn't assist Ukraine, Putin is all too likely to succeed. The Senate floor debate has spilled into what's supposed to be a 2-week recess because conservatives led by Rand Paul protested the legislation by refusing to speed up the votes. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell, speaking right after Schumer, warned that failing to support Ukraine would put America's allies at risk by giving China a green light to project power in Asia and the Indo-Pacific. So our partners will have the luxury of pretending that the world's most dangerous aggressors are somebody else's problem. And neither do we. That's not exaggeration to say that the eyes of the world on the U.S. Senate. McConnell's pointed admonishment about America's role in preserving global security came into response to the sharp criticisms from conservative colleagues who were lambasting him for working with Schumer. Paul, McConnell's home state colleague, on Friday called McConnell's support for the bill outrageous and accused him, Schumer, and Biden of criminal neglect by working to send $100 billion overseas to fix someone else's border before addressing our border. Amazing. Paul and most Republican senators voted last week to block an earlier version of the defense spending package that included the bipartisan border security deal that was endorsed by National Border Patrol Council. Senators voted to advance the Ukraine and Israel funding package after a procedural motion offered by Senator Mike Lee to amend the package failed. Lee accused Schumer of blocking votes on amendments. Leader Schumer is dictating which amendments are allowed to be voted on and which are not. To cut to the chase, essentially all of them are not. Schumer has repeatedly said he's willing to consider a reasonable list of amendments, but Democrats pointed out that a handful of Republicans have offered more than 80 amendments to the bill. Lee spoke at length to a mostly empty Senate chamber on Saturday in opposition to the bill, and Senator J.D. Vance's office circulated a memo highlighting the key flaws in the Ukraine aid package. Vance's staff noted that the $60 billion aid for Ukraine would be the largest amount Congress has passed to help Ukraine since the war started 2 years ago. They also argued the flows of weapon, ammunition, and material to the war could put a strain on the U.S. industrial base. Senate Republicans who support this legislation argue that allowing Ukraine to fall to Russia would hurt America's credibility around the world and threaten U.S. economic interests in Europe. Also, hey, Trump is basically threatening to allow this to happen anyways. So, wouldn't the Republicans just be, in favor of this anyway, since, Daddy Trump is effectively saying, Russia can just do whatever they want anyways. So, I don't get it. They say that most of the military funding for Ukraine will be spent within the United States to replenish aging stockpiles and update U.S. military technology. Everybody talks about this being a Ukraine issue. This is a national defense issue for the country. We're rebuilding supply lines. We're rebuilding arms and munitions. A lot of the money we're spending is all being spent in the U.S. Man, we don't need to freaking spend all this on the military, okay? Enough is enough. Enough is enough. This is some shady shit. I agree. Democrats might need a plan B. Here's what it looks like. Every Democrat voted for it except Warnock, who wasn't there, and Bernie, who's independent. Right, he voted no on it, didn't he? Pretty sure Bernie voted no. Plan B isn't legal in Texas. Hey, but it goes to show, when Democrats really want to do something, it doesn't matter, right? They'll make it work. Which begs the question. Where is this kind of energy for stuff that's actually important? Where is this kind of energy when important legislation that would benefit the American people comes into play? Where is that energy? Also, F Texas, true. So far, Democrats have vigorously avoided any discussion of a Plan B for the presidential nominee, but Special Counsel Robert Hur's report may have forced their hand. Fairly or not, Hur's stinging characterization of President Biden as well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory and diminished faculties has thrust the president's age and mental fitness into debate. Yeah, and the press conference that happened in response to this was very assuring, even if it's like, even if you want to make the argument that this is some kind of like right-wing hit piece or hit job, hatchet job or whatever, you know, you could just hear Biden talk. Okay. Like, this is just like, assuming that this is a completely orchestrated hatchet job done by Republican special counsel that, you know, Garland decided to put, even if that was the case, like, man, you gotta really listen to the guy. And it feels like this is more like a capitalization of this, because, like, let's you know, let's be very clear. Trump is on his way too. Trump is lost. Trump is lost. Okay, Trump has also made absurd comments, incoherent rants, confusing names, talking about long lost, like, dead leaders too. So make no mistake, okay? Trump's brain is also gone. Yeah, he's just a lovely old man with genocidal tendencies. Proof is in the pudding brain, but yeah, Trump is gone. Your brain is also gone. No way, dude. Wow. Oh my god. The intellectual titan returns with a phenomenal comeback. More and more people are talking about Frederick Douglass. Dude, wow. Another massive, okay, analysis and comment by the intellectual titan in chat. Fairly or not, Hare's stinging characterization of President Biden as a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory and diminished faculty has thrust the president's age and mental fitness into debate, coupled with the widespread perception that Biden is too old for another term, and the fact that he frequently trails former President Trump in swing state polling. It's raised serious questions about whether Biden is positioned to lead the party in November and whether Democrats need a contingency plan. Am I the only one who remembers Trump saying that, like, Douglas was some up-and-comer? No, I've completely forgot about that. Trump has said some wild stuff. That guy completely forgot about that. Because of procedural and political hurdles, it would not be easy to simply swap him out. The likeliest outcome is that Biden stays on the ticket, but it is also possible to envision a different scenario where the party does indeed nominate someone other than Biden at its August convention, or even picks an alternative afterward to compete in a historical general election. The truth is that a backup strategy can only be deployed if Biden voluntarily steps aside or is physically unable to stand for nomination. At the moment, despite the anxiety within the party, there's no dispute. Biden is on a glide path to the Democratic nomination. His long-shot rival, Dean Phillips, has warned for months about the risk of nominating Biden and has yet to fail to get any traction. The Minnesota Democrat has largely been ostracized in the party for even broaching the sensitive subject. A late-entering white knight candidate isn't an option at this point, even though only about 3% of total delegates have been awarded so far. That's because by the end of this month, filing deadline for primary ballot access will have passed in all but 6 states and the D.C., so Montana, Nebraska, New Jersey, New Mexico, Oregon, and South Dakota. Even if a candidate managed to get on the ballot in all the states, and even if they won every single delegate, it still wouldn't make much of a dent against Biden's delegate haul. Biden will likely amass more delegates on March 5th, Super Tuesday, in the state of California, than from those 6 states and D.C. combined. Short of incapacitation or a highly unlikely convention floor revolt from the delegates already pledged to Biden and loyal to the president, there's only one practical plan B, and that's Biden himself agreeing to hand over the baton. He's a proud man whose ego has been shaped by the experience of winning of winning election to the Senate in his 20s and then being denied the presidency several times before finally securing it, convincing him he's an increasingly untenable position and needs to stand down won't come easy. But there is a path that enables him to leave with dignity on his terms. It begins with letting the Democratic primary campaign run its course, ending June 4th with the date the last group of states hold its primary. Biden would finish as the undisputed victor with far more than the 1,968 pledged delegate votes necessary to claim the nomination. And then Biden would announce that he would not accept the nomination and release his delegates back to a different nominee. He could insist he's still fit to serve out another term, but that he accepts the public's concern with the president who would be 86 at the end of the second term. He could remind voters that he has always had a bridge. He always said he was a bridge to the future generation of a Democratic leader. The economy's on track, he could note, and argued that he defeated Trump once and protected American democracy. He met his duty. Here's the thing, if that was the case, and he does this, in June? Ending June 4th. That's 4 months? 4 months to the election? Would there even be, if he did that and if he threw all his weight behind whoever he deems to be the one who's going to take the baton, so to speak, would there even be enough time to turn the corner? Would it even make a difference? At that point. Yeah, hand the baton to whom? Harris? I don't know. That's the problem. That's literally the problem. The Democratic Party completely doesn't seem to have prepared anybody in the event that even not even thinking about this whole situation with Biden's numbers, but Biden is old, and they didn't bother to plan in the event that he would physically be incapacitated. Yeah, it's her turn, okay? No, really, it's her turn this time. Oh, Lord. At that point, the scramble would begin among potential successors. Not long after Biden's announcement, a spat of private polls testing various candidates in the general would suddenly be floated to establish different figures' Trump-slaying credentials. Between June 4th and August 19th, when the party's convention begins in Chicago, senior Democrats would jockey for positions to replace Biden in a kind of battle not seen in decades in American politics. Heading into the convention, Biden would still remain a kingmaker if the rest of the primaries went as South Carolina and Nevada have. The vast majority of the delegates to the convention would be pledged to Biden. They aren't legally required to support the president or anyone he'd potentially endorse to replace him on the ticket, but these individuals would have been vetted by the Biden campaign, and many would likely follow his lead if he backed a candidate. Dem congressional leadership is also very old, with the exception of Jeffries. The silent boomers have refused to relinquish power for a while. Yep, that's very true. Hill's signage was literally a red arrow pointing right. True. I'm with her. True. The thorniest issue will be Vice President Kamala Harris. Biden's delegates do not automatically attach to her in his absence. Her poor approval ratings and her performance in the 2020 primaries have not inspired confidence, but the party will be acutely aware of the risks of alienating black voters. Well, newsflash. That's been happening. Without Kamala's help. The other top prospects have already been playing the long game in anticipation for such a moment, building national brands and burnishing their reputations as team players. Blue state governors Gavin Newsom and Pritzker of Illinois have been among the most energetic surrogates which will serve them well as they seek allegiance to the convention delegates. Governor Whitmore has also been a vigorous Biden defender, vouching for him with Arab Americans in Michigan and serving there as Biden campaign co-chair. The Democrats' convention, typically a staid affair, would be filled with drama while Democrats stripped their so-called superdelegates of most of their power in 2016. Those current and former party leaders and elected officials would get a vote on potential second ballot at the convention. That would give them a significant sway in picking a nominee in the floor fight. But perhaps at the expense of reopening the 26 era controversy about the role playing the party elites and stifling Bernie Sanders' chance at the nomination. Every party faction would attempt to leverage the unprecedented situation to its advantage. The potential field could be sprawling, including not only 2020 Democrat hopefuls, but others who recognize the Democratic convention might not be open again until 2032. And then a new Democratic nominee would be crowned. Alternatively, what if Biden pushed through the doubts and was nominated at the convention in late August, but then was unable to compete in the November election? Convention rules say that in the event of death, resignation, or disability of the nominee, James Harrison, the party chair, shall confer with the Democratic leadership of the Congress and the Democratic Governors Association and shall report to the roughly 450 members of the Democratic National Committee, who would then choose a new nominee. They'd also pick a new running mate if they elevated Harris to the top of the ticket. A late Biden departure from the ticket would pose a logistical nightmare for the states. Overseas military ballots are set to go out in some places just a couple weeks after the convention ends, and in-person early voting begins as soon as September 20th in Minnesota and South Dakota. Yes, Americans technically vote for electors, not presidential candidates, but any post-convention effort to replace Biden would likely end in court if votes have already been cast with the name Joseph R. Biden on the ballot. Though the glare is on Biden right now, Republicans face similar thorny questions. The likely nominee, Trump, is himself 77. Yeah, but we don't really care about that, right? We know this. We know this. The point being is that the time time to turn the ship around, to do something, anything, is essentially closing. If the Democratic Party chooses to, I don't know, change Biden, number one, who, and that decision needs to be, honestly, that decision should have been made a long time ago, but how much time? How much time is this gonna, is this gonna allow a room for? This is a strategic disaster. This is a strategic disaster of epic proportions, and it's completely unnecessary. If the Democrats lose in 2024, it's completely on them. This support of genocide is going to have a significant effect. Okay. I know there are extremely intelligent people in our country. How can our government be so stupid, or is it all by design? No, I don't think, well, I don't know. I mean, I just don't know. So my answer to that is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because the outcome is the same, right? Even if it was incompetence sheer incompetence. Or that they're making these decisions consciously. The outcome is the same. I'm not gonna try to deep dive into the minds of these so-called leaders. Right now, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., okay, is not doing so well on the polls. It's not just one outlier poll, okay? It's not just general election polls. It's swing state polls. Important states like Pennsylvania polls that are consistently showing not so great numbers for Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. Okay? And if the trend continues and the numbers continue to show the same trajectory, it is a likely possibility, or rather, I should say, it is a very real possibility that the Democrats are getting ready to just effectively hand Trump a second term. The former president and his aides are formulating plans to deport millions of immigrants. Confrontations over immigration and border security are moving to the center of the struggle between two parties, both in Washington, D.C. and beyond, and that the most explosive immigration clash of all may still lie ahead. In the past few days, Washington may have seen the collapse of a bipartisan Senate deal to toughen border security and amid opposition from the former President Trump and the House Republican leadership at the behest of Trump, as well as a failed vote by the House Republicans to impeach Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas for allegedly to refuse to enforce nation's immigration laws. Simultaneously, Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott, supported by more than a dozen other GOP governors, has renewed his attempts to seize greater control over immigration enforcement from the federal government. Cumulatively, these clashes demonstrate how much the terms of debate over immigration have moved to the right during President Biden's time in office. Yeah, no kidding. But even amid all that overall shift, Trump is publicly discussing immigration plans for a second presidential term that could quickly become much more politically divisive than anything separating the parties now. Trump has repeatedly promised that if reelected, he will pursue the largest domestic deportation operation in history, as he put it last month on social media. Inherently, such an effort would be politically explosive. That's because any mass deportation program would naturally focus on large and minority areas of big Democratic-leaning cities. Many undocumented immigrants have settled, like Los Angeles, Houston, Chicago, New York, and Phoenix. Quote, what this means is that the communities that are heavily Hispanic or Black, those marginalized communities, are going to be living in absolute fear of a knock on the door, whether they themselves are undocumented, say David Leopold, a former president of the American Immigration Lawyers Association. What he's describing is a terrifying police state, the pretext of which is immigration. How Trump and his advisors intend to staff such a program would make a prospective Trump deportation campaign more volatile. Stephen Miller, a real charming fellow, also coincidentally a Nazi. Trump's top immigration advisor, again, a Nazi, has publicly declared that he would pursue such an enormous effort partly by creating a private red state army under the president's command. Well, let me repeat that again. Stephen Miller, a Nazi, and also incidentally Trump's immigration advisor at the time, and probably will resume his role as Trump's immigration advisor, has publicly declared that they would pursue this mass deportation program by creating a private red state army under the president's command. Yeah, cool. Phenomenal. Awesome stuff. So, yeah, that's, if that doesn't raise like the biggest of biggest red flags, I mean, like, I don't know what will. This is very, very serious. The fact that, okay, so let's take a second and put aside the logistical fact of how this would happen or the legality of this, because I don't know how this could even be accomplished in terms of legal and logistical, like how would this work out without being fought in court, without, you know, whatever, without some sort of presumed bureaucratic checks and balances, right? The point that the point being is that they're saying this out loud. They're telegraphing their intention. Like, this is what we're going to do. That should be disturbing in and of itself. Second, this also could possibly be a way of testing. A way of testing just how much authoritarianism people are willing to accept. Okay? Is that you, Satan? I mean, like, this would be absurd. Can you imagine? The only times you hear about this is in authoritarian states. The only people who talk like this are authoritarians. The normalization of this is completely disturbing, because you best believe that these cult members are completely in favor of this, by the way. Because they don't think it's going to be them. They don't think it's their freedom that's going to be in jeopardy. Setting us up for a freaking civil war, sending troops in from one state to another? No way. Yeah, here's a follow-up question. What's the response to this, right? Are Democrats prepared? Because if that's the case, if they're serious about this, what's the response going to be? Miller says a re-elected Trump intends to requisition National Guard troops from a sympathetic Republican-controlled states and then deploy them to Democrat-run states whose governors refuse to cooperate with their deportation drive. Yeah. And unfortunately, one part that the executive can do is nationalize or federalize the National Guard troops from states. And I'm pretty sure that there are Republican governors who would be more than willing. This is why it was so important at that crucial juncture to essentially shut the nonsense down at the border from Texas. That's why at that moment it was so crucial to shut that shit down. But Biden was much too weak. UN is watching all this going. Such deployment of red state forces into blue states over the objection of their mayors and governors would likely spark intense public protests and even conflict with law enforcement agencies under local control. And that conflict itself could be the justification for further insertion of federal forces into blue jurisdictions, notes Joseph Nane, counsel in the Liberty and National Security Program at the Brennan Center for Justice at NYU Law School. From his very first days as a national candidate in 2015, Trump has intermittently promised to pursue a mass deportation program against undocumented immigrants. As president, Trump moved in unprecedented ways to reduce the number of new arrivals in the country by restricting both legal and illegal immigration. But he never launched a huge deportation force or widespread removals that he frequently promised would uproot the estimated 11 million undocumented immigrants already in the U.S. during his time in office. Over Trump's 4 years, in fact, his administration deported only about a third as many people from the nation's interior as Barack Obama's administration had over the previous 4 years, according to the study by Nonpartisan Immigration Policy Institute. Exactly why Trump never launched a comprehensive deportation program he promised is unclear. Even to some is unclear even to some veterans of his administration. The best answer may be a combination of political resistance within Congress and in local government's logistical difficulties and internal opposition from the more mainstream conservative appointees who held key positions in his administration, particularly in his first years. Right. But all he needs to do to resolve that is to learn from them, from those mistakes and just appoint yes men from the get-go. And as Project 2025 states, that's the whole idea. The whole idea is to essentially gut and eliminate as much of the federal bureaucracy, what they call the deep state, and just hand over as much control to the executive on the presumption that they win the election, so that this doesn't have to be contended with. This time, though, Trump has been even more persistent than in 2016 campaign and promising a sweep deportation effort. Quote, those Biden have lit should not get comfortable because they'll be going home, Trump posted on his Truth Social site last month. Simultaneously, Miller has outlined much more explicit and detailed plans than Trump ever did in 2016 about how the administration would implement such deportation programs in the second term. Yeah, like this is very, very disturbing. And again, you know, even if they are unable to accomplish this, like logistically and legally, it doesn't freaking matter. Okay? The point being is that it's beneficial to the fascists, regardless, because the goal is to normalize this kind of language. Okay? Even if they don't actually want to enact this or can't because of the checks and balances, that said bureaucracy, because like remember they have to pass that. Should they win the election, they would have to really be serious about enacting Project 2025 to eliminate the bureaucratic checks and balances. They would have to have enough sympathetic Congress, which it seems like Trump does control the Republican Party. I mean, Trump literally told them shut the deal down, and even people like McConnell bent the knee. That's something that he didn't have in 2016 or his first term. Bad precedent, yes, and to continue to normalize these ideas. Dismissing these declarations as merely campaign bluster would be a mistake. Miles Taylor, who served as DHS chief staff under Trump, told me in an interview, Stephen Miller says it. If Trump says it, it is very reasonable to assume that they will try to do it in a second term. Said Taylor, who later broke with Trump to write the New York op-ed and book that declared him unfit for the job. Taylor wrote the article and book anonymously, but later acknowledged that he was the author. Official at DHS successfully resisted many of Miller's more extreme immigration ideas during Trump's term. Taylor said about the experience of Trump's 4 years behind him, Taylor told me Trump and Miller would be in a much stronger position in 2025 to drive through militant ideas such as mass deportation and internment camps for undocumented migrants. Stephen Miller has had the time and battle scars to inform a very systematic strategy. Miller outlined Trump teams' plans for a mass deportation effort most extensively in a new interview. In an interview he did this past November on a podcast hosted by white nationalist Charlie Kirk. In the interview, Miller suggested that another Trump administration would seek to remove as many 10 million foreign national invaders who he claims have entered the country under Biden. To round up those migrants, Miller said the administration would dispatch forces to go around the country arresting illegal immigrants in large-scale raids. He said he would build large-scale staging grounds near the border, most likely in Texas, to serve as internment camps for migrants designated for deportation. Like, if any of this is not raising red flags, like, I don't know what to tell you. From these camps, he said the administration would schedule near-constant flights returning migrants to their home countries. So you create this efficiency by having these standing facilities where planes are moving off the runway constantly, probably military aircraft. Quad Bennett, Chiefs win the Super Bowl, yep. In the interview, Miller acknowledged that removing migrants at this scale would be an immense undertaking comparable in scale and complexity to building the Panama Canal. He said the administration would use multiple means to supplement the limited existing immigration enforcement personnel available to them, primarily U.S. Immigration and Custom Enforcement, better known as ICE. One would be to reassign personnel from other federal law enforcement agencies such as the ATF and the DEA. Another would be to deputize local police and sheriffs, and a third would be to requisition National Guard troops to participate in the deportation plans. Miller offered two scenarios for enlisting National Guard troops and removing migrants. One would be in states where Republican governors want to cooperate. You go to the red state governors and you say, give us your National Guard. We'll deputize them as immigration enforcement officers, because you would be violating the, I forgot what it's called, comitants, unless they're no longer like actually part of the National Guard. They're now just immigration officers at that point. They would no longer be considered National Guard. Like, again, the logistics, it's a little, or maybe I'm just missing something, but it just feels like not everything has been planned 100%, but I don't think it matters to them. The second scenario, Miller said, would be involving sending the National Guard forces from nearby Republican-controlled states into what he called an unfriendly state whose governor would not willingly join the deportation program. Even though sweeping plans understate the magnitude of the effort that mass deportations would require, said Jason Hauser, a former chief of staff at ICE under Biden, told me removing 500,000 to 1 million migrants a year would require as many as 100,000 to 150,000 deputized enforcement officers. Hauser believes staffing the internment camps and constant flights that Miller is contemplating would require 50,000 more people. If you want to deport 1 million a year, and I'm a Navy officer, you're talking about a mobilization the size of a military deployment. And National Guard members have day jobs. Yep, that is true. Enormous legal resources would be required too. Immigration lawyers point out that even if Trump detained migrants through mass roundups, the administration would still need individual deportation orders from the immigration courts for each person it wants to remove from the country. It's not as simple as sending guardsmen in to arrest everyone who's illegal or undocumented. Right, again, I don't know what the full logistics are of this, but the point being is that the fact that this is out there, and they're trying to put it out there as a possibility of the type of ideas that they're floating around is incredibly disturbing. All of this exceeds the staffing now available for immigration, or ICE, I should say. Hauser said has only 6,000 enforcement agents to fill the gap. Trump would need to transfer a huge number of other federal law enforcement, weakening the ability of agencies, including the DEA, the FBI. Listen, fascists don't really think about that. They don't care. You know, they don't care even if they have to do this. The U.S. Marshal Service to fulfill the principal responsibilities, and even then, Trump would still need support from the National Guard to reach the scale he's discussing. Even if Trump used the National Guard troops in support roles rather than breaking down doors in pursuit of migrants, they would be thrust into highly contentious situations. You're talking about taking National Guard members out of their jobs in Texas and moving them into, say, Philadelphia, and having them do mass stagings. Literally, as Philadelphians are leaving for work or their kids are going to school, they're going to see mass deportation centers with children and mothers who were just in the community working and thriving. He predicts that Trump would be forced to convert warehouses or abandoned malls into temporary relocation centers for thousands of migrants. Adam Goodman, a historian at University of Illinois in Chicago, and the author of Deportation Machine, told me that there's no precedent of millions of people being removed in U.S. history in a short period of time. The example Trump often cites as a model is Operation Wetback, the mass deportation program named after the slur against Mexican Americans launched by President Dwight Eisenhower in 1954. That program involved huge sweeps through not only workplaces but also heavily Mexican American communities such as LA. Yet even that effort, despite ensnaring unknown number of legal residents, removed only about 250,000 people. To deport the larger numbers that Trump is promising, he would need an operation of much greater scale and expense. The Republican response to Texas standoff with the Biden administration offers Trump reason for optimism that red state governors would support his ambitious immigration plans. So far, 14 Republican-controlled states have sent National Guard troops or other law enforcement personnel to bolster Abbott in his ongoing efforts to assert more control over the immigration issue. The Supreme Court last month overturned a lower court decision that blocked federal agents from dismantling the razor wire barriers Texas has been erecting around the border. But Abbott insists that he's building more of the barriers nonetheless. We are expanding to further areas to make sure we will expand our level of deterrence, Abbott declared last Sunday at a press conference where he was joined by 13 other GOP governors. Abbott said he expects every red state to eventually send forces to back his efforts. But the National Guard deployments to Texas still differ from the scenario that Miller has sketched. Abbott is welcoming the personnel that other states are sending to Texas. In that sense, this deployment is similar to the process under which George W. Bush, Obama, and Trump, and now Biden utilized National Guard troops to support federal immigration enforcement efforts in Texas and at times other border states. None of the governors of those states have opposed the use of those troops in their territory for that purpose. The prospect of Trump dispatching red state National Guard troops on deportation missions in blue states that oppose them is more akin to his actions during the racial justice protests following the murder of George Floyd in the summer of 2020. At that point, Trump deployed National Guardsmen provided by 11 Republican governors to Washington, D.C. to quell the protests. The governors provided those forces to Trump under what's known as a hybrid status for the National Guard, also known as Title 32. Under hybrid status, National Guard troops remain under the technical command of the state's governor, even though they're executing a federal mission. Using troops in hybrid status isn't particularly unusual. What made that deployment unprecedented, in Joseph Nunn's phrase, is that the troops are being deployed over the objection of D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser. The hybrid status that Trump used in D.C. is probably the model that former President and Miller are hoping to use to send red state National Guard forces into blue states that don't want them. Nunn told me, but Nunn believes that federal courts would block any such effort. Trump could ignore the objections from D.C. government because it's not a state, but Nunn believes that if Trump sought to send troops in a hybrid status form, say from Indiana, to support deportation raids in Chicago, federal courts would say that violates Illinois' constitutional rights. Under the Constitution, the states are sovereign and co-equal. One state cannot reach into another state and exercise governmental power there without receiving the state's consent. But I would say, by just saying that those National Guards are federalized completely. But Trump could overcome that obstacle, Nunn said, through a straightforward, if more politically risky, alternative that he and his aides have already discussed. If he invoked the Insurrection Act, which dates back to 1792, he would have almost unlimited authority to use any military asset for his deportation program. That is true. And, you know, he's got nothing to lose. So it's not really politically risky, so to speak, because that's it. That's his second term. I don't know. He would have almost unlimited authority to use any military asset for his deportation program. Under the Insurrection Act, Trump could dispatch the Indiana National Guard into Illinois to take control of the Illinois National Guard for the job, or directly send in active duty military forces. There are not a lot of meaningful criteria in the Insurrection Act for assessing whether a given situation warrants using it, and there's no mechanism in the law that allows the courts or Congress to check an abuse of the act. Phenomenal. There are quite literally no safeguards. Cool. Cool. Very, very good. Very nice. The Insurrection Act is a legal tool presidents invoked to federalize control over the state National Guards when Southern governors used the troops to block racial integration. For Trump to invoke the Insurrection Act to instead target racial minorities through his deportation program might even be more politically combustible than sending in National Guard troops through hybrid status during the 2020 protests. But like many other immigration experts I spoke with, none believes those concerns are not likely to dissuade a re-elected Trump from using the Insurrection Act if courts block his other options. In fact, as I've written, a mass deportation program staffed primarily with red state National Guard forces is the only one of several ideas that Trump has embraced for introducing federal forces into blue jurisdictions over the objection of their local leaders. He's also talked about sending federal personnel into blue cities to round up homeless people and place them in camps as well, or just to fight crime. Invoking the Insurrection Act might be necessary predicate for those initiatives as well. These plans could produce scenes in the American communities unmatched in our history. Leopold, to take one scenario raised by Miller in his interview, asked what would happen if the Republican governor of Virginia, at Trump's request, sends National Guard troops into Maryland, but the Democratic governor of that state orders his National Guard to block their entry. Similarly, in a huge deportation sweep to residential neighborhoods in Los Angeles or Chicago, it's easy to imagine frightened migrant families taking refuge in a church and a Democratic mayor ordering local police to surround the building. Would federal agents and National Guard troops sent by Trump try to push past the local police? For all that tumult and the many dispute over immigration are now generating, these possibilities could prove far more disruptive, incendiary, and even violent. What we would expect to see in a second Trump presidency is governance by force, said Diana Malwani, a counsel and director of the Impact Program at Protect Democracy, a bipartisan group focused on threats to democracy, told me this is his retribution agenda. He's looking at ways to aggrandize and consolidate power within the presidency to do these extreme things, and going after marginalized groups first, like migrants and the homeless, is the way to expand this power, normalize it, and wield it more broadly against everybody in our democracy. 100%. And that's how it's done. That's how it's done, you know. While his first presidency may not have been as successful, you know, the fact that he is threatening to do this is deeply disturbing. So, again, I go back to this. The Democrats are literally putting us in a very precarious situation, okay? And you can't pretend to take this serious. You can't claim that you are serious about Trump being an existential threat. By renominating an 81-year-old with a 38% approval rating, who 75% of voters think is too old already without giving anyone a choice, because that's just how things are done. Okay? You are going to end up acting as the turnkey to fascism. Trump won't win, there's no way. I wouldn't say there's no way. I wouldn't say there's no way. I'm saying there is a possibility, and it's absurd that someone like Trump would even be this close, but here we are. Biden will outperform as always. Are we sure about that? Are we really that confident? Because listen, if I'm wrong, I've said that before. If I'm wrong, hey, I get egg on my face, and whatever political commentator, another political commentator takes now on the internet. That's fine. I'm okay with that. Okay. The problem is if I'm right, and we still have 9 months left to the election, and things don't change, and Biden ends up losing, that has real consequences, as I've just described what those consequences might be. Biden's strength resides in the fact that people underestimate him, even though I don't agree with his policies regarding Gaza. I don't know. This isn't 2020, man. I'm telling you, this is not the same election in 2020. This is not the same election in 2020. People are genuinely angry. People are genuinely threatening to stay home, or withhold their vote, especially because of his support of genocide in Gaza. That energy isn't going to be there in 2024. It's just not. It's just not. People are going to stay home. People are threatening to stay home. If genocide isn't a red line for you, you're lost. Muslim Americans in Michigan won't vote for him. It's not just Michigan, but Michigan is a swing state. Yeah, I don't know. I won't vote for him then. If you're not Philly, Michigan, and Wisconsin. It's not just Wisconsin. Georgia's up for grabs too. So maybe your initial comment wasn't as strong. Biden has an uphill battle to fight, and he's no spring chicken. Yeah, and again, like, the whole genocide thing is gonna keep people home. But for now, Biden has outperformed the polls. Not really. The polls aren't looking too good. And it's not just like one poll. It's not just one poll. I'm talking about like a trend of how the numbers are going. Basically, the Republican Party is the Trump Party. It is. And currently, they have a chance. They have a chance of winning. I think the one I want isn't on the ballot except for write-ins, which isn't until November. Well, the majority of people don't want. The majority of people don't want Trump and don't want Biden. That much is loud and clear. Imagine fascist America under one-party rule like Nazi Germany. Well, Biden's support of genocide is making that more and more a reality. If Trump wins, big blow to Europeans. That's what the Democrats are deciding to play games with. So please don't tell me that there's no way that Trump can win. He can. He can. He can. The parties are slowly merging. I'd rather imagine a true democracy of multiple parties and ranked choice voting. If only. Europeans are a big blow to Europeans. Well. Yeah. True. Anyways, the point being is that it's a silly comment to say that Trump has no, that Trump has no path, or there's no way that Trump can win. Oh, he can. And it's much more of a reality. It's much more of a real possibility than the more time goes on. He does, but I don't know. Do you see it? Yes, I do. I literally just pointed out one of the biggest problems is Biden's support to genocide. People are going to stay home. The fact that it's very close, yeah, it is very close. It is very close. So you said there's no way. There's no way that Trump can win. But there is. That's how pathetic this is. Where a authoritarian fascist is literally in play to win the election versus Biden. People voting for a guy who likes dictators and said he'd be one day. Yeah. And people staying home because they don't want to vote for Biden because of his support for genocide. Republicans are very good at messaging when Democrats have facts. Well, that's not always the case. That is not always the case. Anyways, Nate's over. The world must be ending because this is a very rare W, and something that it will probably bookmark come November. Trump blew up the Iran deal, gave Israel that agreement with its neighbors that was the tee-up, and Biden sending bombs over was the follow-through. Yeah, I mean, regardless, you know. I believe that even if Trump was president right now, the bombs were, the weapons and aid were going to go to Israel. It's not excusing Biden. I'm just saying that even if Trump won, even if Biden lost in 2020. All right, folks, we made it. We made it through all the articles. If you enjoy the content and want to support the channel, make sure that you like the stream on the YouTube, subscribe to YouTube, follow us here on Twitch, as so many of you have done. I haven't even checked the count yet, but about 2,360 of you have followed here on Twitch. Phenomenal stuff. Thank you for your support, for the biddies, for the follows, for the subscriptions. You guys are what makes the channel grow. Thank you, Michael Hassler. Thank you, Heat, for modding the channel, modding the chat. They're partners in this despite not liking each other personally or performatively. Who, Biden and Netanyahu? No doubt about it. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. I mean, Biden was pretty clear, right? He said he's a Zionist. Biden was is pretty unambiguous, despite what the media is reporting, like, oh well, Biden is cursing Netanyahu. Okay. Oh, Biden and Trump. Oh, maybe. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. Biden and Bibi, there's no daylight between them. Well, Biden has been very explicit. I don't know about Biden and Trump, but I know Biden and Netanyahu is very explicit. Biden said he's a Zionist, despite what the media was recently reporting, that Biden is very angry at Netanyahu. What good does that do to the 27,000 people that are dead? What good is that? Calling him an asshole in private. What good does that do to the citizens of Gaza, the civilians who are dead? Well. Thank you all for stopping by. I appreciate that. Thank you, Heat. Thank you, Michael Hassler. Thank you all for the support. Don't forget, we'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. I appreciate that. Don't forget, join the Discord as well for movie nights. And to keep up with the channel, check out the merch, do all that awesome stuff. Sharpie Diesel, hey, how's it going? As always, folks, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I love y'all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. See ya. I'm gonna go get me a snack. Hang tight, everybody. All right, folks, we're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bye-bye.